Welcome to another episode of Worthy of Rescue. In these podcasts, I and my guest bring you a biblical worldview, a scripture, or a topic to help you navigate life's journey. We help crush the negative voices or abuse or situations that you have experienced in your life. We want you to know and bring a fresh revelation of who created you, God, and that He has a plan to rescue your life. Today, my guests are Hermine and Dawid Bergh. We had them on the show on Tuesday. They gave a bit of their backstory, but today they're going to share with us going from the pit to the prison to the palace. Thank you, Hermine and Dawid, for joining us today. How are you doing?
We're doing absolutely wonderful. We're in Botswana, very far from where you are, but we're doing great. Thank you.
Yes, it's awesome to be with you. Thanks for having us, Marianne.
Thank you for joining us. We left your story on Tuesday. We were able to touch on a bit of your backstory. Hermine, you're a life coach, you're a teacher, you're the author of The Switch, Unlock the Code for Abundant Living. You're a co-founder of Love on Fire Unlimited and Palace Coaching with your son, Dawid. And Dawid, you're the men's life coach, a teacher, a co-founder of Palace Coaching and Love on Fire. Your stories on Tuesday were so exceptional. Can you take us into why and what Palace Coaching is and talk to us about going from the pit to the palace?
Right. Okay, so let's start just explaining the context in which and why we chose these words. The context is biblical. Number one, there's quite a number of scriptures talking about the pit. I mean, King David was several times in the horrible pit. He calls it the horrible pit with slimy clay that God has delivered him out. And for any one of us who've ever experienced despair and depression, you literally feel that you are down in the pit. It's that place where everything is dark, where it's hopeless, where you almost cannot get out of bed. Something happened in your life and you've experienced loss. Now, to fall into the pit is always to do with loss. Either you lost a loved one who passed on, transitioned into the next life. That is huge loss. And of course, people are then go through the phases of grief, and depression is part of it. But sometimes, I was explaining the other day, you could walk into a big shopping mall and you lose your keys. You immediately feel depressed because where's your key now? Now you've got to call, this one, that one. Your whole Saturday off day is now spoiled, and immediately you feel down. You're sinking. The minute somebody runs to you and says, "Here's the keys," immediately you lift it up out of the pit. So just to capture the pit, it's really a place of loss. I mean, even young people, when they when they sleep around, they lose their virginity, they feel terrible because they've lost their innocence and they were not ready for it. That's also, then they feel depressed because they've lost something. You may lose a job, you
Yes.
may lose some respect. It always has to do with loss. So the pit is actually in the prison, and the prison is a place, Jesus talk and he says, "I came to the world to set the captive minds free and heal the broken hearts." So what is a captive mind? It's not a physical prison. It is your mind that imprisons you in the way you think, that encapsulates you into like a box. And that box is what, as far as your limits are concerned, in terms of capabilities of your life and the potential of your life, and what you have been programmed through your life experiences, through your influence of your parents, teachers, media, friends. As you grow up, you have programmed yourself with a belief system about yourself and how the world works. And that is the prison, so to speak, if it hasn't been liberated, because Jesus became to set us free. And then Paul so eloquently in Romans 12 verse 2 talks about it. Shall I say, rewind to Matthew 6:10, we hear what is God's will is. God's will is, let your kingdom come, let your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Why is, we don't experience heaven on earth most of the times. So how do you experience heaven on earth?
Right.
Well, the method lies in Romans 12, verse 2, where he says, do not be conformed to the patterns of thinking of this world, the neurological patterns. It's actually a soul realm and a physical realm, which is the brain, which holds your neurons where you imprint your thought life into. I always say, do not be conned into thinking like the world. Do not be conformed to the patterns,
Yes.
the negative way of thinking, the evil way of thinking, but be transformed through your renewal of your thinking so that you can do the perfect will of God, so that you can usher heaven into earth through the gateway, which is your thought life. So, and then of course, the palace is representative of a domain. I mean, every king has got a palace that he lives in, and then he's got a territory in which he functions. Now, our kingdom, we are servants. That is the highest honor that we can bring to our royal function that we are supposed, the reigning as kings, because the Bible calls us kings. It's not I that say it. It's not kind of
Yes.
a egotistical, narcissistical aspiration to be important. On the contrary, it's a place of honor, but it's a place of great service and often sacrifice. And that's why we call it palace coaching, because apart from the difficulties, there's also great privileges and benefits in the gospel. And that is what we unlock for people through renewed thinking. Because, David, you can talk about the kind of negative thinking that people struggling with, which is the prison and the pit thinking.
Yeah, it's really to live with the grip of fear and self-doubt is a terrible way to live because it limits your future because your vision becomes so narrow. You don't want to expound, you don't want to believe for something good. Fear actually dictates the boundary for your life now, and that just robs you of peace and happiness. And I think the saddest part of living in that fear and self doubt is that you are not living from a place of knowing your worth. You are not living from a place of
Right.
knowing you are loved. Is now you're actually in a space where you are striving towards that and you look for that in the world. You try to find worth through achievement, through personal success, and in most cases, through relationships by getting approval from certain people or maybe with a spouse. And what happens is it actually just perpetuates your pain because you were never made to find your identity in this world uh, through a humanity that cannot be pleased. And we know that because Jesus himself, perfection, um, perfect love, being crucified. It just
Yes.
shows you that you try to find your own worth in the world. You will always be dry because the world does not know your worth. The world does not know your value. So that is really the heart of palace coaching, is to get people to break through those limiting beliefs, to break through heartache and stagnation, so that people can enjoy fearless living, true joy, and kingdom success. And when I say kingdom success, it's really about living from your place of identity and fulfilling your purpose, because identity is not supposed to be something we strive for. It's supposed to be our point of departure. And it's been our delight and our joy to see that people can transform in an accelerated way. God has given us the tools in His Word to break out of the desert and unlock our personal promised land.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
true. And Jesus didn't look for his identity with his disciples. He always went and sought the Lord for his identity, though he was fully divine and fully human. How can we be so different? That's what you're sharing with your audience. And Hermine, did you have some words you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think another huge important part of anybody's life is relationships.
Mm.
And as far as relationships are concerned, obviously, people's hearts getting broken because they're getting disappointed in relationships, being betrayed in relationships, being mistreated in relationships, and that often results in resentment and sometimes bitterness, anger, frustration, all of those other cluster of negative feelings. For us, it's important to help people to forgive, not only other people,
Yes.
but
Yeah.
to be healed in their own selves and to heal their relationship with God. Because if I often take people first through their relationship with their own parents, because if they have unforgiveness and a wrong perception of what authority and love should look like coming from these people that God has put in charge of their lives, and they have a wrong perception, that will block their understanding of who the Father is and how good and trustworthy He is. So it's so important for us to help people heal those kind of relationships. And not all relationships can be restored, because it's not dependent just on the person who wants to forgive. But as I mentioned to you earlier, Mary Ann, how sweet forgiveness is. And because it is not about whether
Yes.
a person deserves it, forgiveness. It's got nothing to do with that. That person might not even know that you've forgiven them, but it's really about you cutting loose that heavy weight and baggage that you carry around for maybe many years of your life, and to see people coming free. Because once they get free of their limiting beliefs and constraints and sabotaging thinking patterns, and they come free of resentment towards other people, it is like a big double door of their lives are just opening up, and they can see a whole new vista of possibilities, that freedom that comes with that. And then to have the courage, because then they will have the confidence and courage to step into their divine destiny, knowing who they
Yes.
are in Christ, knowing what grace is, that they, no matter what they do, that God is providing for that to come into realization. And that is absolutely wonderful to see people. That's probably the biggest thrill that a person can have, is to help people transform into a life worth living and not just surviving, because that's not what God ever intended for us.
No, it's not. How can people get a hold of you to get more information? I know that you have tremendous stories of success of those that you have coached, both of you.
Yes, if you look in the description of the podcast, you'll see my mom's name. So if you go to her Facebook, entering her name, just add my mom as a friend. We do Facebook Live, we do webinars and things, and you can be up to date by following my mom on Facebook. And then we also have a free gift that we would like to send you, just to jumpstart you in your own mind renewal journey. The Switch, the book that Mary Ann mentioned earlier, we would love to send that to you. So if you
It's a free
if
gift.
you send us an email to palaceinvite@gmail.com, that's palaceinvite@gmail.com. If you email us, we'll email you with the free gift, and we believe it will be a blessing to you.
Yeah, and if you're interested in the coaching, please direct message me in Facebook, or email us, and we can set up a free strategy call for you, whether you can get to know us and see if we are the people that you want to coach you, and we can explain to you how it works.
Yeah.
Um,
So thank you so much for having us, Mary Ann. It's been such a blessing.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you, my dear listeners, for joining us for another episode of Worthy of Rescue. Again, I have with me Hermine and Dawid van der Bergh, and please look for their information in the notes below. And remember that you are worthy of rescue and pursued by God, and they can help you with the rejuvenation of your mindset so that you can fully live out God's kingdom plans and purposes for your life.